In the early hours of July 5, 2005, 26-year-old George Smith IV vanished while on his honeymoon cruise through the Aegean Sea after leaving the Greek island of Mykonos. The night before, George had reportedly been drinking and celebrating heavily. Some believed it could have been a terrible mishap, while others suspected something more sinister. Evidence strongly suggested that George had fallen or been pushed overboard. This case captured global media attention. A joyful and energetic couple just a few days into their Mediterranean honeymoon suddenly found themselves at the center of a shocking and baffling tragedy. Over time, numerous theories have surfaced, ranging from a tragic accident to theft or even cold-blooded murder. Several individuals have been considered suspects, and there are many witnesses who likely know more than they've revealed. So, what truly unfolded that night inside cabin 9062? Let's dig deeper. In 2000, George Smith earned his business degree from Babson College in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Born and raised in Greenwich, Connecticut, George enjoyed a cheerful and stable childhood. His father, George Smith III, ran a local liquor store. After spending a few years in Boston working as a search engine analyst, George chose to return home to assist with the family business. He thrived in an environment that allowed him to stay engaged and interact with people daily. Working at the store suited him perfectly. The long-term plan was for George to take over operations and eventually allow his parents to retire. He maintained a strong bond with his father, his mother Maureen, and his sister Bree. By 2005, 26-year-old George was stepping into a new chapter of his life. That June, he married Jennifer Hagel during a stunning seaside ceremony at the Castle Inn in Newport, Rhode Island, perched atop cliffs with breathtaking ocean views. Jennifer, then 25, also hailed from Connecticut. The newlyweds shared an apartment in nearby Byram. Around that time, Jennifer had accepted a new position as a third-grade teacher. Right after their wedding, George and Jennifer embarked on a luxurious honeymoon aboard the MS Brilliance of the Seas, one of Royal Caribbean's grand cruise liners. The ship departed from Barcelona on June 29th, made a stop along the French Riviera, and then sailed down the coast of Italy. The 12-day voyage was set to continue through the Aegean Sea. While docked in Italy on July 1st, the couple met a family from California, the Askins, after sharing a taxi ride together. Josh Askin, just 20 years old at the time, had a playful personality and quickly bonded with George after their shared taxi ride from the ship. On July 4th, George and Jennifer explored the stunning, breezy island of Mykonos. That evening, they geared up for a lively night out. After sharing a romantic dinner together, the couple first met with another pair of newlyweds they had recently befriended. Later that night, they bumped into Josh Askin at the ship's casino. George and Josh spent time playing craps, while Jennifer gave poker a try. After the casino shut its doors for the night, George and Jennifer continued their evening elsewhere. Around 2:30 a.m., George was seen on ship surveillance footage. This would be the last confirmed image of him. The video captured him leaving the casino. However, the night didn't end there. Evidence from the following morning confirmed that George eventually made it back to cabin 9062. Around 8 a.m., 16-year-old Emily Rausch from Chicago was getting ready for another sunny day of sightseeing while inside her family's cabin on deck 7. As she looked out the window, she noticed what appeared to be a streak of blood on the top of a lifeboat canopy. There was also a noticeable smear near the edge, as if someone, possibly badly injured, had landed there before falling overboard. The chilling sight was located directly beneath cabin 9062 and was later observed by several other nearby guests. By 8:30 a.m., crew members had been alerted, and within 10 minutes, while both George and Jennifer were still unaccounted for, the ship's chief officer entered their cabin. The room was soon sealed off with an armed security guard stationed at the door. Meanwhile, a search for the couple was underway. At 10 a.m., Jennifer was finally found at the ship's spa, where she had been receiving a previously scheduled massage. She claimed she hadn't seen George since the night before and had no idea where he could be. By then, it had become painfully clear that the red marks on the lifeboat canopy were blood, and that George was no longer aboard. Jennifer recalled that men in white Royal Caribbean uniforms approached her and said,
Men dressed in white uniform from Royal Caribbean. They basically approached me and said, you know, your husband's gone overboard. And, you know, they told me about the blood on the awning. They said he'd gone overboard and they found blood. And
Jennifer was brought in for questioning at the local police station. Due to the lack of details surrounding George's disappearance, she was quickly treated as a possible suspect in a potential crime. By noon, Turkish officials came aboard the ship, an unusual and serious development. The ship's crew stated they were cooperating with local authorities and certain passengers to determine whether someone had fallen or been pushed overboard during the previous night or early that morning. Investigators took photographs of cabin 9062 and collected blood samples from the lifeboat canopy. The room itself was in a state of chaos. It appeared either hastily ransacked, intentionally vandalized, or possibly the site of a violent altercation. Small traces of blood were discovered on the carpet and on a bathroom towel. Additionally, what looked like a possible handprint was observed on the balcony railing. Turkish investigators also noted 2 small bloodstains on the bed sheets, each about 2 centimeters long. Testing confirmed the blood belonged to George, as did the blood found on the lifeboat canopy beneath the balcony. This evidence indicated that George had suffered some kind of injury while still inside the cabin. A balcony chair had been moved directly up to the railing. Investigators also spotted what appeared to be a moisture impression, possibly from dew, resembling a butt print on the railing. This led some, including the ship's captain, to suggest that George may have been sitting there and accidentally fallen. However, given the height of the railing and the presence of blood both inside the room and on the canopy below, foul play appeared to be the more probable explanation. To better understand what had happened, investigators began piecing together George's final hours aboard the ship. A key part of this process was identifying who he had spent time with that night. One of the individuals was 19-year-old Greg Rosenberg, who was vacationing on the cruise with his family and friends. Among them were his cousin, Zach Rosenberg, and a close friend named Rusty Kaufman, also known as Rusta Love. All 3 young men in their late teens were naturalized American citizens with Russian heritage, and their families resided in New York. That evening, Jennifer and Greg were seen playing poker together at the ship's casino until it closed for the night. When the casino closed at 2:30 a.m., the group, now consisting of George, Jennifer, Josh Askin, and the 3 young men of Russian descent, decided to keep the night going. They headed to the ship's nightclub for more drinks and dancing. Along the way, they were joined by another passenger, Lloyd Botha, a casino supervisor. With music playing and alcohol flowing, the group appeared to be having a great time, unaware of the dark turn the night was about to take. Around 3:00 a.m., the group returned to the ship, noticeably more intoxicated than before. A staff cleaner noticed Greg, Zach, Rusty, Josh, and George passing around a bottle of their own alcohol, poorly hidden and clearly not sanctioned by the cruise line. Jennifer, who had been relatively composed earlier in the casino, was now visibly unsteady. She leaned against Lloyd Botha, the casino supervisor, perhaps for balance, perhaps flirtation. Opinions differ on what people saw. What followed was also open to interpretation. George exchanged some sharp or possibly playful words with Jennifer. She responded by kicking him, maybe jokingly, maybe not, and then wandered off alone. It was around 3:30 a.m. when she exited the disco, leaving George behind with the rest of the group. When Turkish authorities came aboard to begin their investigation, they made a strange decision. Rather than question the young men separately, they gathered them all into one room for joint interviews. The Russian-American group recounted the same story. George had been extremely intoxicated. Around 4:00 a.m., they claimed, they helped him back to his cabin, gently placed him in bed, even took off his shoes, and then left. Jennifer was nowhere to be found at the time. She was gone. George was with them, and according to their story, that's how they left him, safe in his room.
She was gone. And then we came back to George's room and put him in bed where he went to sleep. Close the door. We never saw him. Never saw him again. He said story. That was it. Never saw him again.
Josh Askin had his own theory about why Jennifer had disappeared so early that morning. He told investigators that he saw her leave the disco with Lloyd Botha, the casino supervisor. According to Josh, the two had been unusually close that night, a claim that was echoed by both Zach Rosenberg and Rusty Kaufman. They even believed Jennifer had been openly flirting with Lloyd, perhaps even cheating on George right in front of him after they all left the casino. During a second round of questioning at the police station, Josh doubled down. He urged investigators to seriously examine Jennifer's connection to Lloyd, hinting that the man might know more than he let on about what happened to George. Josh's father, concerned for his son's safety, videotaped the entire interrogation.
You left the casino because you suppose you went to the club and you took George to the room. He was very drunk.
She was with another man.
Bir başka erkek miydi burada?
The casino manager would. You need to get him in here.
Josh Askin's theory about Jennifer and Lloyd didn't exactly hold up under scrutiny. For starters, no one but Josh and the Russian boys reported seeing Jennifer leave with Lloyd. In fact, Lloyd's keycard shows he returned to his cabin at 3:25 a.m., a timeline confirmed by his girlfriend, who woke up when he came in. Meanwhile, Jennifer was spotted by the same cleaner who had seen the group drinking earlier. She was stumbling toward Deck 9, clearly disoriented, and he helped her into the elevator. But when the doors opened on her floor, she turned right, even though her room was to the left. Eventually, around 4:30 a.m., she was found passed out in a hallway, nowhere near her cabin. 2 security guards and a female supervisor wheeled her back to her room. When they entered at 4:52 a.m., George was nowhere to be found. The balcony curtains were fully shut and perfectly still, a sign that the doors behind them were closed tight. When Jennifer woke up the next morning, George still wasn't in the cabin, but surprisingly, she wasn't alarmed. Just a few nights earlier, George had crashed in a friend's room after a long night of partying. So to her, this wasn't out of the ordinary. Believing he had likely done the same thing again, Jennifer got dressed and headed off to a scheduled spa appointment around 8 a.m. She wasn't worried. After all, their cruise had already been full of wild nights and spontaneous decisions. As investigators scrambled for answers, a number of theories emerged about what had really happened to George Smith. One of the first came from the ship's own captain, Michael Lecteridis. After hearing reports about the group's heavy drinking and seeing what he claimed looked like marks from someone sitting on the balcony railing, Captain Lecteridis reached a swift conclusion. It was a tragic accident. He believed George had simply fallen overboard. And as for the blood found inside the cabin, the captain offered an explanation that many would find questionable. Perhaps George had suffered a minor nosebleed.
Yeah, JP, we were hearing about these reports of hallucinations. How wide-ranging are they, and how severe could they be?
Well, that depends on the strength of the thujone. Now, you can buy absinthe in a lot of countries in Europe, but the European Union restricts the amount of thujone, the active ingredient, to 10 parts per million. So that's not very much. However, there is available a lot of black market absinthe, which people make in their own private stills, producing this stuff for sale on the black market, and that can be 5 or 10 times stronger. So you can actually get a much more strongly hallucinogenic product.
Do you think it could have played a role in this case somehow?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And
No.
Any absinthe that is sold in Europe does not contain enough thujone to cause any hallucinations. I would have to consume about 3 liters of absinthe at the European limit to have any clinically discernible effects from thujone, and I'd be long dead from the alcohol by that point.
Something strange happened that night. Both George and Jennifer went from seemingly sober to barely able to stand, all within the span of just 1 hour. Around 2:30 a.m., they were still being described as composed and functioning normally as they left the casino. But by 3:30, neither could get back to their room on their own. Could it be that one or both had been drugged it's not just speculation. Several casino patrons recalled hearing George and Jennifer openly talking about how much money they had in their cabin. Whether from wedding gifts or casino winnings, the amounts thrown around ranged in the tens of thousands. Were they being watched? Were they targeted? George was wearing an expensive Breitling watch, a gift from Jennifer and his best man. Jennifer's rings alone were worth thousands. Was it enough to make someone want to rob them? And if so, did that someone go looking for money that, according to George's family, might not have even existed? Adding fuel to the robbery theory were tiny bloodstains found on the bedsheet, marks that, some believed, matched scratches that could result from forcibly removing a wristwatch. George's brand new Breitling was gone, and just like that, the evidence started to disappear too. Jennifer Hagel-Smith and George's family were furious. To them, the Turkish investigation felt rushed, careless. They saw no real effort to find the truth. Shockingly, the cruise line was told it was appropriate to clean what may have been a crime scene just hours later. By the end of the day, nearly every trace of blood was gone. Months after the incident, still lacking clear answers, the Smith family hired forensic scientist Dr. Henry Lee to inspect the cabin and balcony. He carried out examinations that the original investigators had overlooked, which could have clarified whether George's death was accidental or the result of foul play. The height of the balcony made it improbable for someone to fall unintentionally, leaving only the possibilities of being pushed or falling while in a disoriented state after climbing onto a chair. However, much of the evidence pointed away from this explanation. Dr. Lee also planned to conduct a mannequin drop test to replicate the potential fall, but Royal Caribbean Cruise Line refused to permit it. To the Smiths, this denial was one of many obstacles they believed the company placed in the way of uncovering the truth.
Conduct different experiment, measurement, study. We did check the cabin, the canopy, and the balcony. We did a couple of experiments. However, I'm not going to share with you the detail of the experiment. That's part of an agreement.
The FBI also took part in the investigation, though most of their findings were never disclosed to the public. Their primary attention centered on 4 young men who had been with George that night: Josh Askin, along with 3 Russians, Greg and Zach Rosenberg, and Rusty Kaufman. Significant parts of their account conflicted with statements given by other witnesses aboard the ship. In the cabin adjacent to the Smiths stayed Cleet Hyman, a deputy police chief vacationing with his wife. During the night, he heard commotion coming from their direction. Initially, it was the sound of loud partying, and shortly after 4 a.m., he contacted the guest relations desk to complain about the noise. He also pounded on the wall to get the attention of those inside. Following this, the area fell silent for several minutes.
All we could hear was loud talking in the room for, probably 3 minutes. But then all of a sudden there became some very loud arguing out on the balcony. This went on for a couple of minutes, and then we heard someone saying good night, just repeatedly, like they were trying to usher people out of the room. You could hear furniture being moved, and then at times it sounded like furniture was being actually picked up and dropped.
After the noise died down, passengers were startled by a loud, heavy thud. There were roughly 2 minutes of complete silence before the impact occurred. When Cleet stepped into the hallway to check, he noticed 3 men, though he was unable to identify them. Several other passengers also recalled hearing the loud sound, believed to be George striking the canopy below. One witness claimed to have heard a woman scream immediately afterward, though no evidence suggested a woman was present in the cabin at that moment. According to the 4 young men, they all entered George's cabin that night, yet only 3 were later spotted in the hallway. This raised the question of whether one of them had remained inside to search the room, possibly looking for the large sum of cash the Smiths were rumored to possess. The idea of a robbery gone wrong appeared to be the most convincing theory. Still, the men maintained that they had a solid alibi. At 4:31 a.m., just minutes after the 3 were seen outside George's cabin, a room service order was placed from a cabin. On deck, 3 registered to one of the 3 Russians. The timing between these events was so tight that it seemed unlikely both the deputy's account and the Russians' version could be accurate. Keycard data revealed that George's cabin was accessed at 4:05 a.m., consistent with the accounts given by the Rosenbergs and Rusty. However, there was no record of the men returning to the room afterward. The Connecticut FBI investigation was eventually handed over to the New York office as the Smith family increased pressure, largely fueled by extensive media attention. During this time, the alliance between the Smiths and George's new wife began to unravel. Jennifer's behavior immediately following the event was closely examined. Many noted she seemed unusually calm in public, raising suspicions about her reluctance to share information.
I know you're doing your job and you have to ask, but again, my number one priority, and I'm going to say this again and again, is just, doing what the FBI has told me and basically,
The final breaking point for the Smith family came when Jennifer accepted an independent settlement from Royal Caribbean worth $1.1 million. By doing this, she chose not to join the Smiths in pursuing a joint lawsuit against the cruise company, frustrating the family due to the company's secrecy and the way the investigation was handled with Turkish officials. The Smiths decided to take legal action against Jennifer over her settlement agreement. They claimed she settled quickly to prevent potentially damaging details about that night on the ship from being revealed. Jennifer, in turn, insisted that the family refused to accept the possibility that their son's use of prescription drugs and alcohol might have led to an accidental fall.
He would have been a loyal father and husband to Jennifer Hagel for many years, and unfortunately, I am 100% convinced he was betrayed.
2.5 months after my son is dead, she comes to our house and has dinner, and across the table she says to me, "I want to get on with my life." I looked at her like, how can you do this to your husband? 2.5 months after his death, you don't want answers, you want to get on with your life?
It's clear that Jennifer's hiding something, so I think that in this case, it was in Jen's best interest to settle so that the truth did not come out.
Jennifer Hagel Smith stated that she remembered almost nothing from around 2:30 a.m. onward that night. She was unaware that crew members had found her in the hallway and escorted her back to her cabin. Both Jennifer and the accused casino manager, Lloyd Botha, underwent polygraph examinations conducted by the FBI, and both passed. Josh Askin and the 3 Russians were also subjected to polygraph tests. The FBI reportedly told Josh Askin that he had failed his test, though it remains uncertain whether this was true or simply a strategy to encourage him to provide more information. In 2009, all 4 men were questioned as witnesses in the investigation into George Smith's suspicious death. When Zach Rosenberg was asked about his knowledge regarding George's death, he repeatedly invoked his Fifth Amendment right, refusing to answer questions about whether he knew if George had been murdered, who might have killed him, or what George might have been thinking.
Do you know if George Smith was murdered?
I'd like to invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
Do you know who killed George Smith?
I'd like to invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
Do you have a belief as to how George Smith died?
I would like to invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
Josh Askin's questioning followed a similar pattern as he repeatedly invoked his Fifth Amendment right to avoid self-incrimination. Despite previously accusing the casino manager shortly after George disappeared, Josh claimed he was in the cabin's bathroom, while Zach and Rusty stayed with George. He also stated that he did not see George's exact location in the room when he said his farewell and left.
Invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
Were you present when George Smith was killed?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
Did you play a part in the death of George Smith?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
While Josh was in the cabin bathroom and Zach and Rusty were with George, he did not observe George's exact position in the room when he said his goodbyes and departed.
Because I want to know what happened that night, honestly. Because I already explained to you, I've been through it and back, accused of nothing. And that's the honest truth. Now I sit in front of this camera and tell you, accused of something that I, through people in my neighborhood in Boca Raton and on the internet, and they blast my name. For what? Because I chose to try to help. That's why I want to know. I'd like to know. I wish I was good in law because I'd make a point of it.
What would you ask Jennifer if you could?
why she left and where was she, and how do you end up in the spa, and then you say you passed out in the solarium, and then whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things that go through your head in the last 4 or 5 years since that happened. We all grew up, you know what I'm saying?
So something from that night just doesn't make sense.
None of it does. None of it makes sense. I don't know.
Do you think Jennifer was involved?
No comment. No comment.
Okay. How about Lloyd Botham?
No comment. I can't incriminate individuals that I don't know, but I know George Allen Smith did not disappear or kill himself or hurt himself or slip and fall off a boat at 6'4" or however tall he is and just dive off. I know that didn't happen. So there's something crazy went down that night. And I hope one day that they find out the truth.
The group claimed to have ordered room service that day, which was a key part of their alibi. However, the ship's service logs showed no record of such an order. Moreover, the men had been officially banned from using room service the previous day due to several phone calls filled with profanity, which had led to security intervening. The cruise line had no evidence that any order was ever delivered. On the contrary, multiple staff members testified that they were instructed beforehand to deny service to these men that night.
Who ordered the room service?
I remember what we ate, but I don't remember who ordered it.
All right, what'd you eat?
Tuna fish sandwiches, I know that. We had like tuna fish sandwiches and I think cheeseburgers. I know we had something that fast food type.
How long did it take for the food to show up, do you know?
No, I don't remember that.
Was it like 20 minutes or?
Probably, that's what it takes. It's pretty quiet at night, so they probably delivered it fast.
But you figure burger and stuff, they gotta cook it, so.
Yeah, tuna. I think it was mainly just tuna fish sandwiches with Swiss cheese and.
Okay. This now, did George and Jennifer actually seem to be happy? Because this is also in Josh's statement, and Josh, you know, from what we can tell, didn't think they were happy.
He's so drastic, man, dramatic type dude, man. I never seen no unhappiness. They were both so drunk and happy. That's how I looked at it.
Josh Askin claimed that Greg Rosenberg had left the room after the group placed their food order. However, Greg denied ever leaving the room, insisting he remained present the entire time. Josh maintained that Greg had left at some point, but Greg dismissed this, saying he was simply relaxing in the room throughout. In December 2019, Greg Rosenberg was fatally shot while sitting in his car, parked in his driveway in Davie, Florida. Authorities believe it was a targeted ambush rather than a robbery, as there was no attempt to steal anything, and multiple shots were fired. The suspect reportedly fled the scene in a white SUV, possibly a BMW X3 or X5, likely driven by an accomplice. It's suspected that Rosenberg took the truth about what happened to George Smith with him to the grave. Police in Davie continue to investigate his murder, determined to uncover the facts. Over time, the Smith family came to believe their son was a victim of a robbery that went horribly wrong. They eventually dropped their suspicions toward Jennifer Hagel. The family successfully renegotiated the lawsuit settlement with Royal Caribbean, increasing Jennifer's original $1.1 million payout to $1.3 million, which was then divided among family members. Part of this new agreement included obtaining the cruise line's full investigative file on George's disappearance, containing witness statements made both to the cruise line and to Turkish authorities by those who saw George before he vanished. Jennifer has since remarried and started a family of her own. She has built a career in the nonprofit sector, working with charities and other organizations, and her relatives are thankful that she has been able to find some peace and move forward. For George's sister, Bree, and their parents, however, moving on has been extremely difficult due to the lack of answers and closure surrounding George's disappearance.
I think, foremost in our mind is who would have done this and why. We don't know any of those things right now. There haven't been any arrests. We know the FBI has a lot of information, but we don't have that information, and we just want to know what happened to him. And secondly, I think we'd like to know where he is. I mean, I think we have an idea, but if we had at least George, we could bury him and have a grave to visit and pray for him. But instead, he's in the middle of the sea, and we don't have anything of him. So it's really devastating for my family.
When the cruise line's documents failed to identify George's killer, the Smith family offered a $100,000 reward for any information that would help bring those responsible to justice. They also urged a boycott of Royal Caribbean, accusing the company of deliberately hiding the truth to protect their profits. The disappearance of George Smith from the cruise ship during his honeymoon remains a mystery to this day. The Smith family suspected a robbery gone wrong, but the investigation faced obstacles and a lack of transparency from the cruise line. Legal battles and conflicting testimonies only complicated the case further. Despite everything, the killer has never been found, and the case remains unsolved. If you enjoyed this story and want to learn more about mysterious disappearances and strange events, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Your comments and support help me create new videos. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss the most fascinating investigations. Thank you for watching.